Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis with a live report for Kings of the North from Ohio State practice. Bill, here on Friday, Ohio State its second practice of the preseason. And is it fair to say that the quarterback competition or the quarterback decision is the most important thing happening at Ohio State camp?
Yeah, there are some other position battles. One other one of note to figure out who's going to start at right guard. But otherwise, it's a lot of figuring out depth, especially on defense. But the quarterback is the main one. Yeah, it's Will Howard, Devin Brown. A smidge of a chance for maybe a Julian Sain, but it feels like it's those three guys and Ryan Day trying to figure out who's going to be this team's starting quarterback.
So good options,
yeah,
I think, for Ohio State, right? We were having a conversation that it is a 5-deep scholarship quarterback room, which in the portal world and the NIL world is more difficult to do. I think a lot of coaches ideally would like to have 5 scholarship quarterbacks. I think in the end, sometimes you get by with 4 and you're happy about it. You hope you don't get down to 3. But for Ohio State to have Will Howard as a veteran transfer from Kansas State, Devin Brown has been here a long time, and then 3 younger guys in Lincoln Keenholz and true freshman Julian Sain and Aaron Noland, that's about as deep, I think, of a quarterback room as you're going to find in the modern college football world, right?
Yeah, I think so. You know, ideally, you'd probably like your most experienced guy, which is Will Howard, to be more experienced within your own offense. Yeah. And obviously he's not. He got here last January. But and there was a catching up period there, I think, like Devin Brown and Lincoln Keenholz. Lincoln Keenholz a sophomore this year. Devin Brown going to be a junior this year. Those 2 guys have been in this offense for at least a year. Devin Brown 3 years, or going into 3 years now, obviously. So Will Howard had to catch up to them to kind of figure out what it is that Ohio State does here. And it was compounded by having a new offensive coordinator, I think, a little bit, too, in Chip Kelly. But by all accounts, Will Howard has caught up and sped up that process, and he's there. So now it's, I think, more about what those guys do on the field. And yeah, most years, I think most teams probably only have 3 scholarship quarterbacks, right? Ohio State always says they want 5. They've come up short of that most years. And even when they do have the number they went, typically it's like 1 guy who's the starter and then a bunch of guys who are really inexperienced. And in this room, you do have a mix. You have Will Howard, who's going into his 5th year of college football, Devin Brown, who's played a little bit, Lincoln Keenholz has some game experience, and then you have 2 really exciting freshmen, Julian Sain and Aaron Noland.
To what degree do you think the quarterback battle decision-making process of last year for Ohio State sort of hovers over this? Because in the end last year, Kyle McCord won the job. Ryan Day and Kyle McCord at the end of last season sort of came to the agreement that, like, it's not going to work out. Kyle McCord is now at Syracuse, where we think he has a chance to have a good year. But a year ago at this time, Kyle McCord and Devin Brown were battling this out, and that competition went all the way to the end of the preseason and, frankly, into the season. And Ryan Day talked about that after the first practice. I don't think in the end that's how he wanted it to play out, but those guys were, 1 guy was ahead, then another guy was ahead, and the result was like that. I don't think they had a firm grasp on it for a while. Ryan Day said after the first day of practice on Thursday that he would like to have a decision 7 to 10 days into camp. It feels like maybe lessons were learned from a year ago, but also I think to have that decision, somebody has to go win it, right? Yeah. Is there a McCord-Brown battle that is affecting this battle now in 2024?
I think the experience of last year informs the timeline. Naming a starting quarterback 7 to 10 days into camp is significantly earlier than Ryan Day has done that in the past. Even when it was evident that Justin Fields is going to be this team's starting quarterback in 2019, it was not until, I believe, like August 22nd that Justin Fields was named the starter. C.J. Stroud going into the 2022 season, everyone knew he was going to be the starter. Ryan Day did not officially name him the starter until around the same time. It was like the 3rd week of camp. So 7 to 10 days in, 2nd week into camp, that would be very early for Ryan Day. But I think it's because of what happened last year. There was just so much uncertainty because neither guy had really pulled ahead. And then by the time he got to the season, it just felt like really neither quarterback sort of like had the team. And they were trying to figure things out on the fly. They got through the Notre Dame game, I think, in spite of some mediocre quarterback play. Ohio State's schedule sets up a little differently. It actually is kind of funny. If you were ever going to have a season where you would want a quarterback battle to play out into the year, it would probably look like a season that starts with Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall. But that's not what Ohio State wants to do. I don't think that served anybody very well last year. So I do think Ryan Day will name his starter earlier. It seems like from what we've seen in the first 2 days of practice, like Will Howard and Devin Brown have been split up a little bit as they do these split field workouts the first couple of days. And then Ryan Day wants to pare that down when they come back on the field next week. They go again Saturday, Sunday, off Monday, and then ramp things up, obviously, Tuesday, looking at a scrimmage down the road there. I think probably after that scrimmage which should be next Saturday, Ryan Day will come in and name his starting quarterback.
So let's talk about what really are like sort of the three guys most in the mix. No offense, but Aaron Noland and Lincoln Keenholz are not going to be Ohio State starting quarterbacks
Correct.
this year.
Yeah.
So we'll start sort of in reverse order with the most interesting guy, which is true freshman Julian Sain, who committed to Alabama, was at Alabama for bowl practice. Nick Saban retires. He goes in the transfer portal and winds up at Ohio State. And he's just a guy that when you watch him throw in practice for his first two Ohio State practices, you note things, do you not?
Yeah, his accuracy, his release time, his ability to process things, I think he is the best at all three of those in this quarterback
So then
room.
he's the quarterback. Then he's the starter. You just named the starting quarterback.
But but processing things when you're out in a 100,000 seat stadium without the experience of doing that is a totally different animal. And Will Howard has that experience from starting at Kansas State. Physicality is a big part of the position. They want to run the quarterback this year. Julian Sain is not the biggest guy in the world. He is different physically now than he was in the spring.
Yeah.
But I think still needs to make some gains there. So it's more than just those three things. Those three things I think are pretty important. Those three things and Julian Sain's knack for them already are why I think he could have at worst be QB2 for this team. But I don't know. We're not on alert for him, I think, to win the job in this camp.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be on alert for him all year to be kind of like lingering in the background should the quarterback play not look up to snuff.
Yeah. Bro. One of those things. All right, let's talk about Devin Brown, who was in this battle, nearly won the job a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Came in the spring and said, I am here to fight. If anyone thinks Will Howard's just being handed this job because he's the new guy, think again. Did not transfer. And that kind of, vim and vigor is very appealing.
Yes.
But then you got to go out and win it. What do you think of Devin Brown's chances of actually doing that?
They're there, right? It's a non-zero chance. I thought during the spring, I felt like there was a little more back and forth between Will Howard and Devin Brown, where you kind of talked yourself into man, maybe Devin Brown can do this thing. Come out here, and it's just the first couple of days of camp. Devin Brown more or less seems like the same guy he was in the spring, and I think we'll talk about Will in a second. Will Howard has made some strides to improve his play. So I think that means that Devin probably does not have a tremendous chance of winning the job, but he'd be a heck of a number two, right? A heck of a backup as a guy who's been in the offense for a long time, has some athleticism. We saw him last year as a red zone quarterback and run a little bit. He's got a big arm. I think maybe the thing that holds him back is consistency, kind of throwing to all levels of the field, short, intermediate, does not always look great. But he can, when he really syncs it up and lets it rip down the middle of the field or down the sidelines, we've seen a couple of touchdowns already in his career where he can do that. So he's got some gifts. I just don't know if he's quite checking all of the boxes he needs to check to be the starter.
So then it's Will Howard, who when you transfer here from Kansas State after being a starter there are some assumptions. I'm not transferring to Ohio State to sit. But Ryan Day, again, sort of talked about all the quarterbacks. He thought they had good off seasons. They improved their bodies. They're in better shape. They lost weight and then gained good weight, that kind of thing. He also mentions the zip and the accuracy on Will Howard's ball. Do you think it looks like he has made a jump as a passer just in his time here at Ohio State?
I do, yeah. Even mechanically, he looks a little different from how he looked in the spring. He's got a bit of an unorthodox delivery, which he'll probably always have. But it does seem like Ohio State's worked on that with him a little bit. And he was already kind of a big strapping dude, but he's just kind of chiseled that a little more, I guess. So he's out here with his sleeves rolled up, so you can see the guns. I picked up on that. He has noticeably, I think, more pace on the ball than he had in the spring. And I think if you watch him at Kansas State, so that is an improvement. He's never going to be the best downfield thrower. It's just it's a shortcoming of his game, and frankly, probably something that Devin Brown does do better than him. But I think the shorter, intermediate accuracy is better for Will. Will is a better runner. Will has more experience, and there's subtle things with Will too. Reminds me actually a little bit of Dwayne Haskins, not so much in the arm, but the way he can just make little movements in the pocket to avoid some pressure and get himself in a good position to make a throw. And I think that just comes with playing a lot. So those are the things that I think will ultimately win him the job, even if, tools wise, he doesn't blow you away with everything he does.
Will Howard also looks like a guy that could be a problem for teams in the run game.
Yeah.
Last year at Kansas State, not a huge scrambler, but did do a fair share of designed running.
Mm-hmm.
You just noted he seems sort of quick to the hole, and he's just a big rumbling dude when he gets out there. And Ryan Day had talked about the idea of wanting to wear teams down in the fourth quarter. And I have now arrived at the idea of throw in the first half, and then if Will Howard's the guy, Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, and Travion Henderson running people over in the second half. And I think Will Howard, with his size and physicality, probably is the best candidate to do that. So I think that would seemingly, potentially for this offense, this season, be very appealing to Ryan Day and Chip Kelly.
I agree 100%. And Devin Brown is a willing runner. Like, there was a lot of conversation last year about Devin Brown's running ability compared to Kyle McCord's. Yeah. And I think when we talked about it so much, we expected when Devin Brown got out there to kind of be like this elusive, explosive guy. I don't think he's that. He will run. If you ask him to do it, he'll do it. He'll lower his shoulder. He got hurt, actually, lowering his shoulder trying to score a touchdown against Purdue last year. Will Howard, I think, is just a little more twitchier, a little more explosive, has a little more long speed, in addition to having sort of the toughness and willingness to want to do it. So I think that's another leg up for Will.
We're going to be out at a couple more camps on Kings of the North, so look for more reports like this. And then, of course, all this knowledge we'll be talking about on our regular Kings of the North episodes. For now, from Ohio State, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and thanks for watching Kings of the North.